Hello and welcome back to Underlab. Minor side characters have a habit of becoming ridiculously popular, and those in Undertale are no exception. Napstablook and Muffet are even many players' favourite characters overall, and I imagine some of the mini-bosses within Undertale have even more fan art depicting them than the main characters from some other games do. So why not dedicate an episode entirely to them? There's lots of little bits of trivia and obscure facts about Undertale's iconic mini-bosses. So let's talk about the most interesting secrets that you quite possibly never knew. Napstablook is the first mini-boss we encounter and is well known for his evasive and awkward nature. Here's a few interesting little facts that you may have not realised about him. Firstly, did you know that Napstablook appears the most of all mini-bosses within the game? He's first met within the ruins, but also later on when fighting the Mad Dummy, within his home at the area where we play Thundersnail, and not to mention both the times he tries to add us as a friend through the monster equivalent of Facebook and when he calls into Metaton's show on the pacifist route. If you didn't realise it at first, Napstablook is the first person to call in to plead with Metaton, and when Metaton says the first two letters of a name beginning with BL, he's actually referring to Blucas, which is a nickname for Napstablook. To add to that, the two are actually related as they're both ghosts. However, Metaton has since been given a physical body by the brilliant Dr. Alphys. Let's not get too sidetracked though and return to the ghost of the hour himself, Napstablook. An interesting observation about his name is the first half, Napster. Napster, spelt differently, was originally a website for sharing music. I'm sure it's no coincidence that Napstablook is also a musician, as we discover by visiting his house, where he's created what can essentially be described as several spooky mixtapes. An interesting piece of trivia I've never talked about before is that in the Undertale art book, it reveals that Napstablook was merely a placeholder character. Because Toby Fox's friends ended up liking the rather shy ghost, he was given an official place within the game and is now an integral part of Undertale's canon. It's surprising to think how much the game would be different without such a seemingly insignificant character. The next handful of mini-bosses we encounter consists of the Snowden Canine unit. I think it's fair to classify them as mini-bosses as they're all unique encounters with their own attacks, which distinguishes them from repeating enemies such as Icecap. In a previous video I mentioned that the dogs are closely comparable to huskies due to their acclimatization to a winter environment. However, it's quite obvious that some of them don't exactly fit the description of a husky. For example, Greater Dog much more resembles a Pomeranian, which is pretty much a tiny fluffball of a dog that can have white fur. Did you know that Doggo has a poster of the Japanese symbol WAN in his sentry station? You may wonder why that is. Well, in Japanese it's onomatopoeia for barking, further proving that Toby Fox is secretly just Alphys. You can spare Doggo using the stick you start the game with, and that further applies to literally every dog enemy in the game. Lesser Dog Sentry Station contains a box of Pome Raisins, further adding to the likelihood that certain dogs within the Canine unit are Pomeranians. Also, did you know that Dogamy and Doggeressa's name is actually quite a complex play on words? Dogamy is a play on various words for different types of marriage, such as polygamy and monogamy, whereas Doggeressa was the title given to the wife of a Doge, the archaic rulers of Venice during the Renaissance era. This might seem like a stretch if it wasn't for the fact that the two are clearly married. How about the Mad Dummy? Keeping in line with the constant references to Japanese culture, it's believed that the Mad Dummy is a reference to the anime Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. The music has similarities to the show, and the dummy itself acts in a fashion that resembles the character Dio Brando, with how the dummy states words such as useless over and over. Don't ask me much more though, as I'm not up to date on my Chinese cartoons. For the sake of comparison, let's take a quick listen to the theme that plays when you encounter the Mad Dummy, and a certain track from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. One last thing worth mentioning about the Mad Dummy is that they appear to be part of the ghost family consisting of Napstablook, Metaton, and a ghost NPC we never actually get to interact with, hiding within a dummy in the ruins. It seems that Napstablook also wins the award for having one of the biggest families in Undertale. Next up is possibly the most famous mini-boss in Undertale, none other than Muffet the Spider. As I mentioned in my top 10 obscure Undertale facts video, Muffet could have potentially never appeared in the game at all. They are in fact a fan character who was brought in for a special Kickstarter perk. Their original creator is also known as Michelle Shutkowski, who's also the author of the webcomic Ava's Demon. As I've also mentioned in the past, the character is undoubtedly a spin on the nursery rhyme Little Miss Muffet. In the rhyme, a young girl sat on a tuffet before a spider came down and tried to sell her overpriced confectionaries. At least I'm pretty sure it goes something like that. This is probably a good time to mention that many of the mini-bosses share the same theme. In fact, Dummy, Ghost Fight and Spider Dance are all roughly the same composition, just with a few alterations and a different arrangement. Let's play short samples from all three back to back to hear the similarity. Many players find Muffet to be one of the more difficult battles within the game. Well, did you know that Toby Fox agrees with you? He ended up nerfing the character a few times before release, but he still felt that maybe it wasn't enough. That's probably why there's a secret way of skipping the encounter entirely, specifically to consume spider cider or a spider donut in front of her, which immediately informs her that you've helped spiders in the past, and therefore you aren't her enemy. One particularly memorable mini-boss is the duo, Royal Guards 1 and 2. These two masculine guards seem to have a secret crush on one another, and it's your duty to get them to reveal their true feelings. In the past I mentioned that discerning their true identities is very difficult due to their metal full plate armor. However, one detail I neglected at the time was their helmets, which appear to have been molded to fit their specific species. Judging on that alone, the guard on the left appears to be some sort of bunny monster, whereas the one on the right appears to be some sort of bipedal dragon. However, if you really want 100% proof, you can call Undyne to confirm it, and additionally the sprites themselves are referred to as Royal Guard Rabbit and Royal Guard Dragon, so there's no room left for doubting or questioning what species these two are. Don't think that Toby's obsession with Japanese words ends there, however. The sprite names for the guards' individual body parts all have the words Barra in them, which is a Japanese word referring to homosexual men. It seems like Undertale doesn't really need a Japanese translation, considering that half of it is already written in anime and manga terms. Finally, we have the Amalgam Ace. I've talked about these creatures many times in the past, so there's not too much new stuff to mention. It's worth mentioning that though the game makes it clear that the Canine unit is related to Endogony, there's a good chance that it's also related to the annoying dog, as my patron Emily Gatewood pointed out. After all, the dog does use an attack that very closely resembles the Toby Fox self-insert, which potentially hints at a connection between the two. One very funny detail about Endogony is the fact that the black space between its legs seems to resemble the silhouettes of cats. A very interesting observation I've never brought up before is that one of Memoryhead's attacks very closely resembles Mystery Man, who in turn is speculated to be Gaster. The implications of this could have a multitude of meanings. It's also worth mentioning how closely the Memoryheads themselves resemble Gygas, the final boss from EarthBound, which as you probably know was a huge inspiration for Undertale. Well, I think I'll end this video there. I've plans to make a separate video focusing on the Amalgam Ace once more in order to get to the bottom of a few of their biggest mysteries, but this episode isn't the time and place for that. Things are about to get very, very interesting. Those are some of the weirdest and most obscure facts out there about Undertale's mini-bosses. Did I manage to teach you something new? Be sure to let me know in the comments. Undertale's minor characters have definitely made their impacts on society, and no one is going to be forgetting the likes of Napstablook and Muffet anytime soon. Which of the mini-bosses is your personal favourite? Also, how many dogs could a dog if a dog could dog dogs? As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't get caught in Muffet's web or arrested by Royal Guards 1 and 2, and I'll see you next time. Before I go, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to my patrons, my head scientists Asgorn Shi, Cameron Vigil, Kay Jensen, Sophronius, Mary Morkan and Care Bolritid, and my Underlab scientists Crystal Sleet, Nicholas Dux, Armin Arlett, Marisa Ray, Corey Kidwell, Yushio Coroni, Sarah Wydra, Emily Gatewood and Jerome M. Walker. If you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out the Patreon link below, as well as the video that explains why I'd so massively appreciate your contribution.